Hi guys, welcome back to the Raw Like podcast. My name is Danielle Baker and thank you for being here today. Today we have the beautiful Hayley Curtis on, and I'm really incredibly excited because she does gene keys, and gene keys basically pull back the layers of human design. So if you're a bit of a human design nerd or you don't know what human design is, she goes through what human design is and then she pulls back the layers to what gene keys are and how they add up together. She also did a bit of my human design on here and my gene keys. So towards the end, I think we've got 15 minutes of her diving in and experiencing and showing you guys exactly what she does. So I hope you guys enjoy today's podcast, and I look forward to hearing back and hearing from you guys, and I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Which found G keys, I was like, oh my God, these are describing everything that I've been finding out true through my own journey. And then I dove deeply into that. And, that was a very kind of quick fast forwarded version, but fast forward to now at
Yeah.
age 35. And this is life is devoted to utilizing the gene keys to help other people to take that journey back home to themselves, back home to their true worth, their true purpose, so that they can find the joy in their life right alongside challenge free.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's an absolutely incredible story, Haley. Like, I honestly, when I do interviews, I don't expect people, I don't know what I expect, how people go down that road and how they have that self-discovery. So, did being sick make you want to go deeper into yourself and discovering yourself more? Is that how that worked? So, you just had a lot of illness come up, and were you in the job that you always thought you wanted to be in, or no?
Well, so I found myself, I always wanted to be, growing up, I always wanted to be a personal trainer. And I was locked into that from about the age of 8 years old.
Yeah.
And so I spent my whole schooling saying, that's what I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do. And then I graduated high school, I became a personal trainer and I started working as a personal trainer. And it was in my first week, I was like, what was I thinking? I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And then through there, I was like, what else might I want to do? And I thought, oh, well, I really loved school, so maybe I could become a teacher. And so I
Yeah.
went to uni for 4 years. I became a teacher and I really loved teaching,
Yeah.
but teaching didn't love me back.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I really loved the impact that you get to have as a teacher. And I loved getting to witness children growing. And I loved getting to, instill beautiful values in these kids. And I
Yeah.
loved a lot about teaching.
Yeah.
But the way that you have to show up and the amount of burnout and the toll that it took on my body, where I had chronic illness and I didn't, it had started getting worse from about the age 18. And
Okay.
then I went into teaching and there was no more hiding from this thing because it was just, I
Yeah.
couldn't live life working in that way. And
Yeah.
then my body was shutting down. So that then took me out of teaching back and forward, because I'd take time off because I'd completely burn out. I'd get better and I'd go back. And
Yeah.
then I'd take time off because I burnt out and I'd go back.
Yeah.
But it was illness that was my eventual catalyst
Yeah.
inward. But
Okay.
it took a long time and many, many years for it to beat me down
Yeah.
to the point where
Mm.
I really hit a point where I felt like I couldn't keep going. I'd hit a point of complete hopelessness. I'd hit a point of really not wanting to live anymore. And that was that catalyst of,
Mm.
well, Hayley, you're going to have to do something about that because this is happening. And I was in a lot of resistance to it, just thinking, okay, I need to fix this. It needs to go away. And as long as if I can just fix myself and get back to the way I was, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. And I think I hit a point of acceptance, of recognizing, well, what if this doesn't go away? You're going
Yeah.
to have to learn to find yourself in this instead of trying to get back to some you that you were, because it was the you that you were that got you to this place. So do you even want to go back to her? Because you'll just end up right back here again.
Yeah.
And so that became that real catalyst. And in that journey of digging into myself over the first few years of
Mm.
this journey, I really came to understand so much more about myself, and I could see how teaching actually wasn't a fit for me, and I could see how there were certain parts of it that didn't align with even my values or the
Yeah.
passions of my heart. And even though I was good at it, didn't mean that I should do it. And
Yeah.
that's when I had the courage to finally leave teaching. And then it wasn't until a couple of years after that that then I started my now business.
Yeah. It's crazy how the catalyst for sickness can really, really take people inwards and really make them look at themselves. I've had quite a few people in my life that I've known as friends that have actually had that happen to them, where they've been really sick and then they've had to make the decision. It's kind of like the universe is forcing them into a corner to have like a decision. Like, do you want to do you want to make a change, or are you going to stay the same? And if you're going to stay the same, this is what's going to happen. And if you make a change, there could be this that's going to happen. So I think that it's really beautiful how you've gone through that process. And it's something really special and unique to you. And so through that, you obviously found the gene keys. And I've actually like, I love introducing people, and I want to find out about the woman, not just your work. Like, I want to find out about what makes Hayley tick. So what makes you tick? Like, with the gene keys aside, like, who is Hayley to the core? Because so many women are trying to find themselves at the moment. I have so many clients that are like, I don't know who I am, I don't know where to start, I don't know what I do. So you inspire me so much because you are you, and I can feel that in your core. So I want to know what makes Hayley tick. Like, is it did you take on certain patterns, or did you go back and start again? Did you strip everything back? Did you spend time in with new friends? Like, what did you do? How did that work before you moved into the gene key stuff? Because we'll go into that, because I'm really excited to go into that as well. But I want to know what makes Hayley tick and how she works.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it was a massive cocoon season,
Yeah.
huge cocooning season, because my whole life, if you asked someone to describe me,
Yeah.
they would say, oh, she's so bubbly. She's a social butterfly. She's always doing something, and traditionally that's who I thought I was,
Yeah.
right? And so I really had to strip it all back. So, right, I left my job. My husband was working in the country at the time, and he would drive out and work and drive back.
Yeah.
And what we ended up doing was we got rid of our house, and I moved to the country too. So I moved out to Kojonup, which is like a little country town
Yeah.
3 hours east of Perth. And we lived in this little shack, and I lived there for 9 months
Yeah. Wow.
and just spoon. So there was no family around me, no friends, no work,
Yeah.
no obligations.
Mm.
And, we were not in the financial position to do that. At this point, we were in $120,000 of credit card and personal
Yeah.
loan debt. So me just being like, I'm just going to go do nothing out in the country was not ideal, but it was a very serious turning point in my life, and it was a crossroads, and we decided to make that sacrifice, to make that happen. So for me, stripping everything back and just being with me
Yeah.
and learning how to freaking rest, like actually learning how to rest. I had to learn how to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to let my shoulders drop. I had to let my nervous system
Relax.
even start to consider coming back into the parasympathetic state. I had to, in that initial season of cocooning, I was sleeping 18 hours a day. I've got chronic fatigue as one of the chronic illnesses that I navigate. And so what really I needed to cut through everything with this massive cocooning to start finding the home within. And that's really, that's what makes me tick, I would say, is
Yeah.
the idea of journeying back home to
Yeah.
myself, the idea of not looking for identity or worth or love in anything outside of myself. And what that looked like for me was a very, very deep, very in solitude, like me and me sifting through this stuff, having
Yeah.
the courage to sit with my shit, like really releasing some stuff. And the main thing for me, and this is like the piece of myself that lights me up the most, and the piece of myself that is what I believe to be my mission
Yeah.
is finding joy and bliss
Yeah.
amongst pain and suffering,
Yeah.
finding joy and bliss amongst challenge. And that's really been my journey. And it's what I've devoted my life to is understanding the mechanics of that and deeply understanding suffering instead of trying to be an avoidance to it or trying to fix it. What if we let it in? What
Yeah.
if we came to understand it? What if we came to be friends with it? And what I found to be true is so much purpose
Yeah.
ignites from that, so much joy ignites from that. And I feel like that's me. I am the joy in the darkness. I am the bliss in the pain. And my whole unfolding of my life and my journey has been about that.
Wow. That is so beautiful, Hayley. Like, honestly, that is so beautiful to connect with and to hear. I resonate with that deeply because we've just done that. My husband and I live out in Mullawa, which is east of Gelton. So it's in a
Mhm,
small Indigenous town.
mhm,
And I like what you said because before I moved, I was in a space of really coming back to myself again. I actually lived down south for a bit and then I moved back home. And I think that a lot of people think that you have to be around hustle and bustle to also heal yourself, that you have to be out and about all the time. But it's in those moments when you are on your own in that darkest times, in your darkest moments. And I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but it sounds like you were in those dark times and those dark moments, sifting through things that probably you hadn't seen before. And you were in your, was it your mid 20s, early 20s that you did this? Was it?
At
Yeah.
this point I was so like it started at 25.
Yeah.
We moved down south. We
Yeah.
moved east when I was 28, and
Yeah.
then we actually ended up moving to New Zealand for
Yeah.
3.5. So I fully removed myself from
Yeah.
that country.
Yeah. You
And
just
we
went,
moved
I'm
there
out
when
of
I was, yeah,
here.
I was literally out of there. We moved when I was 30. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. Your story is incredible, and I really think that a lot of women should hear that because a lot of people don't take themselves away and they want to know how to really get to know themselves, and they don't put themselves in like being on their own and just being as well. You don't have to isolate yourself to the fact when no one talks to you, but just being and seeing the patterns that you hold and seeing and being in those patterns and understanding them and then understanding yourself better. So when you react or when you do something, you are seen and you know, right, okay, I react like this. How can I implement that into my life? And how can I then take it so that I'm not taking out on other people, or I know myself more so I can remove myself in that situation. And is that kind of how gene keys work as well? I'm going to move into that a little bit now as well because I
Mm.
feel like that's how it kind of works, but I've been trying to navigate it in my mind because how it works in my mind, I think it's completely different. But I don't want to dismiss what you said either because I think that people need to know that taking yourself away and really diving into yourself is so important. And would you say that that really helped you block out the noise from other people? And um, how did you manage to go into your mind? Like, how did you manage to like, yeah, like what was that like? Like sitting with yourself in mind, because I know firsthand what it's like to do that. So how is it? Can you explain to people how that is?
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of the solitude, like it's sometimes we have the privilege to be able to physically remove ourselves by living somewhere else, but even if you can't, you can
Yeah,
still find solitude no matter where you are.
yeah,
You can be in a room full of 1,000 people
yeah,
and find solitude. It's like this invitation into getting comfortable with yourself. And I
yeah.
guess getting into your mind,
Mm,
which then leads you down into your heart, which is where the real fucking work happens. But
yeah,
first, you've got to get through that mind.
yeah,
Coming into the mind, or even just entering into inner work, it's about learning to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable and
yeah,
learning that when you hit a place of discomfort, it's not a reason to turn around and go back. It's actually a reason to keep moving.
yeah,
And when I first started inner work when I was I was having panic attacks left, right, and center. I was
Yeah.
not in a good place. And I
Yep.
saw that initial
Mm.
work where I was journaling, just putting pen to paper. I saw it as being inside my own mind with like a
Yeah.
butterfly catcher, just catching shit and putting it on the page. Like, because my mind was chaos. I felt
Yeah.
like I was a leaf in the wind and there was
Mm.
shit flying everywhere. And so I was like, I just need to start sifting through some of this stuff. So I
Yeah.
just grab a thought and put it down, grab a thought and put it down.
Yeah.
And what I started doing over time as I was grabbing thoughts and putting them down,
Yeah.
I started to quieten the noise, and then I could actually look at these thoughts and start to get curious with them.
Yeah.
That is the number one thing I think with
Mm.
going in and
Mm.
actually starting to make sense of things is you have to go in with the spirit of curiosity.
Yeah, of
If you
course.
go in with a spirit of harshness or trying to
Mm.
fix something, you're just going to create more anxiety for yourself.
Mm.
Whereas if we go, okay, if I can capture something that's going on in there and then get curious about it and ask myself, well, where might that have come from? What
Mm.
experiences might I have had in my life that contributed to having that thought? What
Yeah.
might be the truth beyond that that I'm not seeing? What might that be inviting me into? What kind
Mm.
of transformation is it yearning for? And that's really where I began. And over time, as you keep doing that, the
Mm.
layers peel back deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I had to start with the superficial stuff,
Yeah.
and now here I am 10 years into that journey and I'm
Mm.
on layer 10,000. But
Yeah.
as you peel that back, it opens up a complete new universe to you and it just gets better and better and better. But you got to start with the
Yeah,
first layers
you
to get
do.
down. And so it's not about, okay, I'm going to do inner work. I've got to sit with my deepest, darkest trauma today.
Mm.
It becomes more about, well, what's really bothering my mind right now? And how can I just start there and get curious and peel that back, which will allow me to peel back the next thing, you know?
I just love everything that you've said. Like it's just like you just said everything that comes to my mind all in one. And you know how to put it so perfectly. It's amazing. I just love it. Your experience is so beautiful. Like I've never met somebody that I understand at that emotional like level mind wise and hear them talk and go, I get exactly what you're saying, but you break it down so perfectly for people as well because it's a lifetime thing, right? People think that if I have a lot of clients that think that's going to happen in a day, in a second, and I'm like, it takes time to unravel. It takes time for you to trust yourself and trust who you're working with. And
Yeah.
I find what you've done so powerful in so many ways because you didn't have anyone to guide you, right? So
Mm.
you just guided yourself into that. And it was almost like your soul is so powerful that it knew once you started connecting back to yourself, you could put everything down and you could sift through and finally start to hear. What did it feel like when you could hear clear again, Hayley? Like what was that like when it wasn't like so much turmoil? Because so many people, including myself, because I started when I was 15 with my mentor. So I had to unravel things really early in life and like the challenges of like going through teenagehood and then my 20s and then now I'm 30, it's completely different. But watching that space has been huge. And so I can
Mm.
understand how sometimes it would be very like complicated. I find it complicated to explain to people. And I think you'd be able to explain it perfectly from what you just said. How does it sound when your mind is completely clear? Not clear, but when you've got more handle on things. How did that work for you? Then what happened?
Yeah. Oh, as soon as you asked that question, my skin went like when I got these big goosebumps, like a surge of goosebumps, because it is the most
Mm.
magnificent feeling. And like you said, it doesn't happen in a day. It
No.
doesn't happen in a month. And it doesn't happen in one sudden moment either. It's a gentle unfolding where you just start to recognize, oh, I see it a bit more clearly, and then suddenly you catch yourself and you go, my God, I'm living life in such a different way. I've
Mm.
become so much more of me, and you catch yourself and go, I'm actually not doing that pattern that I'd been focused on peeling back for so long, and now I'm just finding myself and it's gone, but it's not magically gone, and it wasn't in a second. I
Yeah.
say it's not breakthrough, it's breaking through.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are constantly breaking through, and then yeah, so for me, that feeling really the feeling I think that it truly is spaciousness
Yeah.
is what we're seeking. Because
Yeah.
when there's so much noise in our mind and so many fears and all of the victimization, there's just no space. It's
Yeah.
restricted, it's tight. It's
Yeah.
like the life is being strangled out of you, and you
Mm.
probably can't breathe, and our nervous system, all these things. So, as you start sifting through it all and you take that inward journey, that journey back home to yourself, what you're actually doing is creating
Mm.
space inside of yourself where that space did not exist before.
Yeah.
And it is from that spaciousness
Mm.
that you then have the ability to
Mm.
see things from a different perspective. You have the ability to pause and
Mm.
to take in what life is bringing to you and not just instantly be in reaction to everything life brings our way. Like you were saying before, when we don't have spaciousness inside of us, we live in reaction.
Yeah.
But when you start to create space, you start to live in revolution, where you're able to experience the exact same things
Yeah.
yet respond in a completely different way because you had the capacity to pause around it, to breathe around it,
Mm.
and to respond from your heart instead of reacting from your mind.
Yeah.
And as that starts to happen and you start to witness yourself moving differently in your life,
Yeah.
it's profound, and you start to build more and more and more and more evidence that you can trust yourself, that you can trust the process, and that you keep going, and that foundation gets thicker and thicker, and you can build a fucking skyscraper on top of it, and you can do anything. Whereas I used to say before, my life was so, like, I was so ungrounded that I was like
Yeah.
a twig in the sand, that wind would come and I'd fall over, and wind would
Mm.
come and I'd fall over. And
God,
then I was always rebuilding, it fell down, I've got to rebuild, fall down, and you're exhausted. So instead of just trying to rebuild all the time,
yeah.
take a hot fucking minute and spend a season of your life working on the foundation of who
Yeah.
you are. So then you can build a skyscraper,
Yeah.
and nothing is going to blow that motherfucker over
Yeah.
because your roots go so deep. And that's the feeling.
Mm.
That's the feeling. It's core stability. It doesn't sound very sexy, but it's the sexiest damn thing you'll ever build in your life. The ability for a storm to rip through your life.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're flexible, you can move with it, but you will not be uprooted.
Yeah.
And that is a completely different way to live life,
Yeah.
but it requires a very, very deep inward journey and a very deep journey into the mechanics of challenge and
Oh, sorry, you cut off in that little last bit, Hayley. I'm so sorry.
I
And
think we
that
have a
last,
big lag between us.
I know, I'm so sorry. My internet today is not the fantastic, so you're doing incredible. So thank you so much. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I love seeing little synchronicities in your life to my life. And just in the last, probably, I would
Hmm.
say we've been rooting quite deeply in the last, probably, I'd say 2 years after my daughter was born.
Hmm.
And before that,
Hmm.
I always used to say to my mum, I'm like a little kid skipping over pebbles, and I just always crack my head on the ground because I just used to always just fall and crack, fall and crack, and fall and crack in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I fucking love everything that you just said. It's just like, that is the most realist thing I've heard from a woman in a really long time about when you build that foundation, when you build that strength, when you build that solidness, when you go within, you really look within yourself and you can accept yourself for everything, the turmoil, the good, the bad, the mistakes, the everything. When you start to go in and you really harness that, you can then, and I can say that because I'm actually in that now. I've moved past that and I'm just on the edge of that, of really understanding myself now. Hitting 30, I think, is a really, and I see myself probably where you started before you were jumped 5 years from now. And it's such an inspiration to like hear you talk and hear you kind of like to say where you are now, because it gives me hope. And I haven't said that in a very long time. And I don't say that very often, but you give me hope to like, for me, because like having gifts is one thing, but like grounding in that stability, like really just like yeah, it's really hit a chord to my heart. You got me there, Haley. Like honestly,
You've got me teary. You got me tearing up over
yeah,
here.
me too. And I'm like, that doesn't happen very often to me on a podcast. But like everything that you've said, it's like the core root of where I think
Mm,
people
mm.
don't really understand where to go. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
you bring that to your clients, right? So let's talk about like your gene keys and how that evolves from there. So how did you figure out what gene keys were and how did that kind of implement you to go more forward in your life?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. So I came into the Gene Keys the way most people do through human design.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
most people will know what human design is, and very fewer people have heard of Gene Keys.
Yes.
So I'd been digging deeply into myself for many years, and there was this girl that I started following on Instagram, and she was talking about human design, and I was like, oh my gosh, so interesting. So I started looking into human design, and I was like, wow, this is so liberating. I'm a projector. And as I was reading about what that meant, I thought, holy shit, like I found it I found it liberating. Like, wow, that's exactly me and why I am the way I am. And I found it very useful
Yeah.
implementing it into my life. And this girl that I loved learning from, I just started listening to every podcast she'd been on and all this stuff. And then she started sharing about gene keys
Yeah.
and and she was sharing these big fancy words that I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, but I was really intrigued and it kept popping up and I kept saying to myself, oh, Hayley, you should look into that. Oh, Hayley, you should look into that. And it wasn't until about 6 months later that I saw it pop up and again. And I said, Hayley, order it. Order the book. So I ordered this Gene Keys book. At this point, I didn't even know there was such thing as a Gene Keys profile. I didn't know that you had your own Gene Keys. I just thought there was the Gene Keys book and that you just
Yeah.
learnt about all of them.
Yeah.
So I ordered the book and it arrived on my doorstep and I opened up the book. It was such a spiritual experience, Daniel. I opened up this book and I went and I laid on the couch and I started reading the introduction and
Yeah.
I started crying. And as I was reading it, I felt my soul saying to me, Hayley, you are going to be here for decades. You're going to dedicate your life to this. Because what I was reading was resonating with my soul, putting into words what I had been discovering for myself
Yeah.
on this deep inner wisdom level that my
Mm.
soul knew what was happening, but I couldn't quite put the words to it. And right here in the Gene Keys, it was putting the
Yeah.
words to it. I was like, what the fuck? And then I find out as I'm reading, oh my God, you have your own profile. Okay, I'll go look that up. I look up my Gene Keys profile and started digging into my life's work Gene Key, which is your first Gene Key.
Yeah.
And Richard Rudd, who is the author of the Gene Keys, he literally said word for word 2 sentences that I had written in my business manifesto of what
Wow.
I was here to do.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is happening? This is the most spot on thing I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah.
And so then I went on a very, very deep inward journey
Mm.
with my Gene Keys, and it cracked open the pieces that I couldn't quite crack open on my own. I'd done so much work and I had opened up so much. And at this point I had my business. I'd started my business, but I
Yeah.
was teaching people how to journal. I was teaching people inner work. I had a membership and I was loving what I was doing. But this suddenly was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the way that I can really start cracking these things open.
Yeah.
And so just for a little definition of like people might be thinking, what the fuck are the gene keys? So the gene keys are the 64 spectrums of human consciousness. So the 64 archetypes of the human, and they have a shadow, a gift, and a city within them. So they
Yeah.
give you this understanding of the challenges that we face in life,
Yeah.
yet the gift that lays hidden within that challenge and how you can utilize understanding the challenge and understanding the shadow pattern and the fear in order to unlock the magnificence of the gift so that we can actually start to manifest a different life through a very deep inward shadow work style journey.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
so as I journeyed into this for myself
Mm.
for the first year of just unlocking magic in myself beyond my wildest dreams, finally putting my finger on the little pieces that I couldn't quite put into place on my own, I realized I need to start sharing this with the world. I very naturally just started
Yeah.
chatting about it a little bit, and then I program that was called Destined, and it was about helping women to understand what they were destined to do. And I just incorporated one gene key into it, where I took the women through their life's work gene key as part of it. And these women's lives started to open up, and they were saying, Hayley, what the fuck? This is the most transformational thing I've ever done. Like, can we do more of this? And I just naturally started bringing the gene keys in more and more until eventually my whole business morphed into a business, because the deeper I went into this work for myself, the more I realized that I am devoting myself to this.
Yeah.
And now, fast forward a few years, I've worked with hundreds of people with their profiles and very, very deep one-to-one inward journeys with many, many people. And there has not been a single time where I have not seen a life completely transformed, where the things that people thought they would never be able to work through were
Yeah.
cracked open with their gene keys. And so that's, I could never get enough of this, Danielle. Like, even just this morning, I spent my whole morning, I get some screenshots of their profiles in my DMs, and I just send voice notes, just for fun, because I just fucking love it. And I've just spent my whole morning messaging me back being like, how the fuck do you know everything? Like, my deepest, darkest parts of myself. How do you know this? And I'm like, well, the gene keys. That's how.
It's absolutely incredible, Hayley, because I was like, what a gene, like I've done a lot of stuff over the years, and I was like, what
Yeah.
the heck are gene keys? It's the one thing I've heard about once before you.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty a dive deeper on all things when it comes to like wanting to like discover myself in all deep ways and different stages
Uh-huh.
and phases. And I was like, I just want to know more about these gene keys, like where so how are they different to human design then? So obviously you said they got a shadow. What else did you say? They got a shadow and then they have
A gift and a city.
gift.
So they've got three frequency bands. So,
Right.
for example, gene key one is the shadow of entropy,
Okay.
which is the loss of energy in a system or the lack of creativity.
Right.
And then the gift is freshness.
Okay.
So within that loss of creativity,
Yeah.
you become ultimately creative. And the city is beauty, which is like the
Right.
flavor of love that is in that, right?
Okay.
And it's so interesting about the gene keys. So actually, let me answer your question about human design. So
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
Richard Rudd, who is the creator of the Gene Keys, he spent many, many, many years in human design, and he actually was gifted the rights of human design for all of the UK. He set the first human design schools in the UK. And anyway, part of his story is human design is brilliant, right? And I love human design. However, you can only go so far with human design because it's a knowledge-based system, whereas
Yeah.
the gene keys are a wisdom-based system.
Okay.
Human design tells you things about yourself and can even box people in sometimes, where they can end up becoming a victim of their human design.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm a projector, I can't do that. Or, oh, I've got the gate of struggle, so my life's just going to be shit. Whereas the gene keys is taken, so the gene keys have got the 64 gates. The human design has 64 gates. Gene keys is 64 keys, where, for example, in human design, there's the gate of struggle, and
Okay.
it's just about it being shit, and it's a
Okay.
struggle. Richard Rudd has taken that and said, well, hang on a second. There is such goodness in that, though. So it's the shadow of struggle, the
Mm.
gift of perseverance, and the city of valor. So it invites you. Human design tells you what kind of car you are, right?
Yeah.
What kind of vehicle you are. So you can understand your vehicle and how to
Yeah.
drive it.
Yeah.
The gene keys are the terrain on which you drive your car.
Okay.
They are the journeys of life. They are your invitations of this is likely what life is going to invite you into.
Okay.
Based on the gene keys you have in particular points in your profile, I'll be able to tell you, well, this is the core challenge you're probably going to face in life.
Okay.
And this is likely how you're going to undermine yourself and your emotions. And this is likely how your health and well-being will be undermined. And
Okay.
it will invite you on these journeys in different parts of your life. The
Yeah.
one thing I'll say about gene keys, and this is the thing where we're often people that have tried heaps of stuff and love trying heaps of stuff, and we bounce around from things and we learn things, and it's amazing. But the gene keys will not ever yield to the want for a quick fix,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
sure.
They are not a place of a quick fix. And that's the big difference about them. You can, like, it will not let you. You have to devote yourself to a patient, gentle unfolding. And
Mm.
that's really the only way.
Mm.
And the gene keys, because they cover the whole spectrum of human consciousness.
Yeah.
They really are. You'll find every system and everything you've ever done in this life, or every course you've ever taken, or every book you've ever read, you'll find a gene key
Mm.
that actually fits into. So it's a transmission, it's a synthesis
Yep.
of all of life. So it's really something that you come and work with, and you never need anything else
Yeah.
other than this, because all other
Yeah.
things fit into this. It's really fucking fascinating.
Amazing. I'm so hooked on it. I'm actually so hooked on this. It's ridiculous. I'm like, should I send you my G key? I'm like, what the fuck, Hayley?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Reading as part of this podcast. I can literally put your birth information in right now if you'd like a
Yeah,
little
you can if you want
insight.
to. We can do it now if you're happy to do that. I know I'm a manifest generator.
Absolutely.
Um,
Okay, let's go to let me just bring up the thing to bring up your
I love this so much. I'm just
profile.
gonna.
It's a great way to show people in live time what this is like.
Yeah, I think so too, because a lot of my
Okay.
female clients I work with always ask me questions afterwards about people that I have on, especially about this
Mhm.
stuff that they're wanting to know more. So I think it'd be great
Yeah.
for everyone to kind of have a little understanding about what Hayley does and how probably important it is to understand it and why it's so important for your body, because a lot of people go through
Yeah.
life not knowing who they are. So
Hmm.
this can really break that down for you as well.
Absolutely. What's your birthplace, Danielle?
Gelton, Western Australia.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Nice and hot.
Hot is an understatement at the moment.
And what's your birth date?
Uh, so 2nd of
Hmm.
August,
Yeah,
1994.
1994. And a rough birth time?
I actually know it. It's 11:15 a.m.
11:15 a.m. Okay, let's see what magic we got here.
Love that for me.
Now, just for a bit of context for the listeners, usually if I do a gene key session with someone, I spend 2 hours peeling back one gene key.
So
Right
hey,
now, you've got 13 gene keys in your profile. I'm just going to give you a little overview of
okay,
what I see. Okay.
okay.
If you're happy, do I have consent to do this on the podcast where everyone's going to hear?
Of course, yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
It
I'm not
might be a
ashamed.
little bit exposing for yourself.
Nah,
Okay.
I'm fine.
All
I
right.
love I
You
love that
go.
stuff. I'm happy to break down things because I think it's very important to be very honest about like the hard, the
Mhm.
complicated, the I don't think I
Mhm.
speak nearly enough on socials about the stuff I actually really deep dive into. So this
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. All right, instantly I can see in your profile your description that you used to use of yourself for falling over and hitting your head on a rock and getting back up again. I
Yeah.
can I can see that here. So in human design, you're a 3-5 profile.
Yeah.
And so in the gene keys, you're also a 3-5 profile in your activation sequence. So you're a
Okay.
33.3 and 19.3 in your life's work
Okay.
evolution, and a 24.5 and a 44.5 in your radiance and your purpose.
Okay.
Now that line 3 that you have in your pathway of challenge is where you learn through fucking living life,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so you learn through like, oh shit, shouldn't have done that. Oh shit, shouldn't have done that. And but you learn that way, and as you age and as you mature,
Yeah.
you'll actually start to find that you don't fall down and hit your head as much.
Yeah.
However, you do thrive on different experiences and different energies. And
Yeah.
so for you, it's important that you get to travel and live in some different places. You can thrive just as much in a city as you can in the country.
Yeah.
You can thrive just as much chatting to a stranger as you can a best friend. And you really take a lot from experiences like that. And so change is something that not only are you here to bring, you're a catalyst of change,
Yeah.
but you also thrive upon change. But then there is a little part that you have to be aware of, because you can start using change as an avoidance mechanism
Yeah.
where you change too much to avoid having to deal with what's coming up in whatever it is that you're doing, where it's like, or you change too much trying to accrue some kind of knowledge or answer instead of sticking with something long enough to allow it to really crack
Mm.
you open, right?
Yeah.
Now, you're a Jinky 33 and 92, so your life's work is mindfulness,
Yeah.
meaning, and your shadow is forgetting.
Yeah.
So part of your mission here in life, Danielle, is to embrace the fact that you are going to forget
Yeah.
who you are. And this
Yeah.
is part of the human condition. We forget, we go on these beautiful journees and we can reveal so much about ourselves, but then we forget about it. And then we have to remember again. Gene 3 comes to tell us that we only forget who we are so that we can experience the pure joy of remembering.
Yeah.
And so your work in the world is helping people to remember who the fuck they are.
Yeah.
And you do that by helping people to slow down. You do that by helping people to remember to breathe, helping people to remember that they are safe to stop for a second, helping people to remember that they're safe to actually sit with their minds and sit with their hearts,
Mm.
and then with Gene Key 19 is your evolution. This is your biggest challenge in life. And it goes from codependency to sensitivity to sacrifice.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you likely are very sensitive to other people's energies.
Yeah.
And you're likely very sensitive to environments.
Mm.
Codependency will use that sensitivity as a reason to remain a victim, where it goes, well, because the energy is shit in here, I can't be myself. Or
Yeah.
because they're in a bad mood, I can't be me. I need something to bounce off of. Or
Yeah.
like, well, because that didn't go that way, I can't be okay.
Yeah.
And that's this shadow of codependency that 19 is invited to really start to understand about
Yeah.
itself. And your biggest challenge in life, and probably something you've gone through since
Mm.
the age of 15, diving deep into yourself, is coming to recognize that you do not need anything outside of yourself to be in contact with your power and
Yeah.
your light and your love, including your husband or anyone. It's beautiful to have people that bring you love and light, but you don't need any of it. And then
Mm.
once we completely disentangle from needing anything from anyone else, well, then we can truly step into the gift of sensitivity, which is to be able to sense what other people need,
Mm.
but not sensing it in a victim way where we're like, oh my God, they need too much from me. It's sensing it in a way that then you can actually show up and start to offer the environment and people
Mm.
exactly what they might need in that moment
Yeah.
in this beautiful, loving way. Like Gene Key 19 can even freaking sense plants. They can
Mm.
communicate with animals. You know what things need.
Mm.
Like it's beautiful. But
Mm.
codependency is the gateway. We've got to first see where we're blocking ourselves, and then yeah, you might have a fear around being touched, or a fear around, oh, it's too much, like hypersensitive to things, noises and stuff like that, and your life is about learning how to navigate that
Yeah.
instead of like allowing that to just continue to be an issue,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then yeah, so there's some of the key pieces, and then ultimately your vocation, which is also your core wound, is Gene Key 21, which goes from the shadow of control to the gift of authority to the city of valor. And you're here to be the author of your own life,
Yeah.
to like take authority over taking that pen and writing your own damn story instead of trying to control your story.
Yeah.
Instead of like, you might have a tendency to either be a control freak or let go
Yeah.
of all control, where everything
Mm.
goes to shit, and you might have a little, you may have had an issue with all or nothing swings in your life where you're like,
Yeah.
I'm all in on this, and then I'm not at all. I'm absolutely looking after myself, and now I'm not looking after myself at all. And like that struggle with discipline, and discipline might be a sore spot for you. And so the Gene Key 21 is this invitation into self-love being the foundation of discipline, and what that looks like in order to be able to write your story without hyper controlling it or not controlling it. And then that's becomes the birthplace of your biggest magic in the world, that you help other people to do that as well. So, I mean, that's like a tiny little snippet
Yep.
of what I can see in your program.
Yeah. And that's like hands down the best. I don't actually get readings or anything from anyone because I've worked with my mentor for 15 years and I just like it that way. It's probably my chart that you've
Yeah.
just said, but it's more
Probably the control.
probably the control because I know what's going to happen. But I also built up a lot of trust with him over the years as well.
Yes,
But in
yes,
fairness, I'm very
yes,
picky
absolutely.
about who I would go to, and I would go to you, Hayley, because that everything that you said was very true. Because I know that for a fact, because my mentor and I are actually working on half of those things that you said. So I've actually gone through some things recently that has actually broken down some of those things for me, and now I'm like trying to address them so that I can really start to help and harness people in my true form that I'm here for. I do love adventure and I
Yeah.
do loving in different places.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's been really incredible to hear everything that you just said because it aligns exactly with me and exactly who I am. And I'm very much aware of those spaces and places because I actually recently somehow stumbled upon Gene Keys like a week ago, and I started reading about myself in that, and it came up with everything that you said. And I think that my I only had my okay, my I only had my this is how aligned this is. I only had my mentor like 3 days ago, and he said to me, I said to him, like, this energy that we're working on is so different. And he said, it's because it's you. This is actually your home. This is you now. We're working with your home, with you're going back home to your soul now. You're properly going back to your soul. And I've worked with him for 15 years. And I was always like, I thought
Wow.
I knew the connection with my soul. But it wasn't until I
Yeah.
connected the other day, and it was like this beautiful flow of water. It's like a planet of water where you only live off water and air. And I'm going to explain why this is so relevant to what you just said. And so I went into it and I had tears in my eyes because it's a new energy that I'm working with, and it's quite common for me to go in and out of spaces, but this specifically hit home because it then showed me every single part of my life that connected to now that I didn't understand. My sensitivity,
Wow.
my
Yeah.
over emotions, my running away, my control, and while I'm so controlling. And he specifically said to me at the time, he said, we're working on understanding yourself better because you want to know why you get angry. You want to know why you control. You want to know why all this stuff comes up. And I said to him, yes, that exactly what you said is basically a reflection of what I was working on recently. And
Mm-hmm.
in that tells me that there's something I need to look at more after this. But it also it also tells me that what you do is very authentic and spot on. And I
Mm,
really admire that because I understood everything you were saying, because dropping into that deeper really gives
mm,
people an understanding of their heart, their
yeah,
life, their
yeah.
next level, because I didn't love myself. That's a great one there. Was it took me just before I met my husband to actually understand what loving myself was and to accept everything a part of me. And I'm
Yeah.
just completely evolution, like pushing it in now though. And really
Yeah.
just loving, like I was thinking the other day, yesterday, I was standing by the sink in my kitchen. I was looking out, we live on a farm, and I was looking outside and I thought, really love myself. I really love who I am as a woman. I really love who I'm stepping into, and I really love and the breaking down of my life at the moment. And it's I think it comes a time in life when we want to discover ourselves and we're too afraid to step into,
Mm,
or we don't know how to. So I think
mhm.
Hayley brings an absolutely incredible, mind blowing, well, it's only that was only what, 5-10 minutes, Haley, that you gave me just
Yeah.
then. 2 hours. She can give you 2 hours to sit there and cry with her and discover yourself in a whole new different way. In a whole new different way. But you have this way of explaining it, understanding it, and expressing it so beautifully, Haley, that you can
Thank
tell
you.
it's your life purpose. And it's very rare that I come along and women that are really in their purpose really shine, and you really shine. And I admire that because you have so much passion for it, and you're also doing your soul's work, which feels so aligned. When I think about you and when I was tapping into the energy before this, it was like you are so aligned with yourself. It's almost like you shine like an angel. It's absolutely beautiful. So thank you for like sharing that and sharing what you do, because I think it's amazing thing. Got me all emotional over here. So
Oh, so wonderful. And you know, like in terms in terms of the gene keys, and this is where they really hold their potency is, like you said, you identify like, okay, the control and the sensitivity and the this and the that. Most of us can identify those
Mm.
things, but then we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
Like most of us can identify those things, but then we're like, okay, what do I do to address that?
Yeah.
And the potency of the gene keys is that it not only shows you, okay, well, here's that shadow and here's a full breakdown of that so that you can start to really see the mechanics of it in your life, but then it also says to you, but this is the gift that's actually in that.
Yeah.
Which then gives you a portal of manifestation because you have the language around not only what this shit is that's happening in my life, what it invited me into. So a holder of hope. So you're not just blindly going through something being like, okay, am I just going to hit shit upon shit and then I'm just going to feel worse?
Sure.
You go, oh no. When I dig into my control, I'm going to activate my authority. When I dig into my codependency, I'm going to activate this gift. When I dig into my addiction, which you've got in your radiance, I'm going to access my inventiveness.
Yeah.
You know, like, whoa. And so it actually gives you a roadmap. That's what I call it for your personalized roadmap to your high purpose.
Yeah.
And I mean, how fucking awesome to have a map when we were just going at it blind before, you know? So
having something from going from dark is so important as well. Like I actually was just thinking just then while you were talking about like how I've actually rectified something recently to do with what you said in my gene key, and I can't remember what it was, and I'm lucky enough to understand how that shadow work works. So for me, when I see it, I welcome it and I sit with it. And now it comes up in my mind when it's there. And I'm like, oh, right, this is actually this playing out. I need to take a moment and play it out differently, or I need to step into it differently, or I need to align with that differently. What was it? It was something recently that really has clicked for me because I've really shifted in the last 6 to 12 months with working with energy and different things. So it's the gene key fits perfectly into what I've just kind of been working on at the moment, of really just like flipping it. I think the addiction is one, because I definitely do have an addictive personality, like 100%. Hence tattoos up my arms and stuff like that.
Me too, girlfriend.
The addictive personality, and one on my chest, one on my arms, whatever. And I'm very aware of those parts that you've said. So for me, it's not like I feel so sad about it. I'm like, great, that's amazing. Now I can amplify that even more because I understand how to flick that switch. But I've learned how to do that. So Hayley can provide to help you do that and do that along the way, which is so important, because it's like you don't want to go through blind and being like, well, how the hell do I flick through that, or how the hell do I switch through that? You know, everyone has their ways of going about it. I'm lucky that I've had what I've had so far to be able to understand what Hayley's saying. But I definitely love what you do, Hayley. So it's very important work that you're doing, because a lot of people are not aligned with their passion and they don't know how to be, do they?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the reason is that people are searching for purpose, and that's why they're not in connection with their purpose, because they're searching for it outside. And we avoid our fears, and as long as you avoid your fears, you avoid your purpose. So
you already know how to just do it so kindly, so simply, so forward. I love it. Well, thanks for being on here today, Hayley, and giving us a little bit of that that insight to gene keys, because I personally was like, want to understand gene keys a little bit more because I knew about human design and being a manifestor generator, but also, and I knew the flip side and the non-so-flip side, and so it was kind of like, everything you said was, I'm just like, that was so good. Because I love to learn and I love to grow.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's always such a blessing to be invited to chat about your heart's deepest passion. So I really thank you, and I love your energy, Danielle. I could chat with you all damn day. And I mean, we live in the same state. We might live about 5 hours away from each other, but I'm claiming an in-person catch-up at some point.
We can definitely do that. I'm actually moving
awesome
to Margaret River, so that works.
Oh, that's where we want to move to.
Oh yeah, well
we're currently saving our pennies because we want to get down to Margaret River.
Well, we hang on, we can chat after this. I'll just Thanks again, Hayley, for being on here. We're absolutely going to have Hayley back on here again, actually, in probably about 6 months, and we're going to go through some more things with her. I've already planned it, and I always want her on here. So thank you, Hayley.
Amazing. Thanks, Danielle. Bye, everyone.